right, so some of you have been asking, what are some of the techniques that I need to learn or tips I need to learn when I am out there trolling offshore? Well, the professor's here, we're trolling right now, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about in today's video. All right, Professor, tip number one as we're trolling is?
Speed.
Speed. Tell us about speed, sir.
Well, I like to troll, and you really can judge it on your GPS speed because there's a lot of factors that go in there. But on an average, it's anywhere from 6.5 to 7 knots when you're trolling for like blue marlin, white marlin, sailfish, tuna, you know, your general average speed for all that.
Okay.
And
what changes that? Because I know current can affect things too, right?
It can. So a lot of times if you're fishing in current, you might be going, you know, into the current and only doing like 6 knots, and then all of a sudden you turn around and go with the current and you're doing 9 knots. You know what I mean? But it's all about how your baits are swimming in the water. That's why you have to be really conscientious about turning around and looking at your baits and making sure that they're swimming properly.
All right, so number one was speed. Number two, Professor, what say you?
What to do when you get the mark.
Okay, so let's say we go for a big mark. At that moment, what do?
Well, a lot of guys get discouraged when they run over a mark and they don't get a bite.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of different factors that go into that. I mean, a lot of times the fish could be deep and your baits aren't getting down far enough, which we're all pretty much all surface trolling here, but a lot of times if they're deep and you either turn on them and let your baits fall and flutter a little bit, or you bump it out of gear and let your bait fall and flutter a little bit, there's all kinds of different techniques you can use. And also, I've seen it a lot of times where you go over a mark, the fish are up high in the water column, they don't bite, and you go over them a different angle, they don't bite, and all of a sudden you can hit the magic angle, you know, to where your baits are looking good with the current, and the tide, and the wind, and all of a sudden they just look pretty and they can't stand it. So just because you get a mark and don't get a bite, we didn't get a bite out of that. Sit there and grind on that mark.
Yeah, how long will you grind on a mark if it's a good mark until you leave?
Well, it all depends on what else I've seen in the area. If the marks have been far and few in between, I'll stay there for an hour and grind on it.
Yeah.
You know, from every direction. And a lot of times, if you stay there, those fish are going to feed at some point. It's just a matter of whether you have the patience and the knowledge and the know-how how to stay over top of them and, you know, just circle them and keep on from all different angles.
All right, Professor, tip number three. What say you, sir?
Well, another thing is playing with your spread. You know what I mean? If you're grinding on the mark and other boats are getting bite around you, and you know you're not getting bit, maybe you need to change something up.
Okay.
Different colors or different distance behind the boat. I mean, there's a bunch of different factors, but don't be scared, you know, to just try. And one thing you really need to pay attention of, if you do get a bite, keep a mental note or even write it down of what that fish bit on. So one of the first things that I always ask when we land a fish, I holler back there and I'm like, Trent, what did he eat? What color was it?
Right.
You know what I mean? So you just want to keep a mental note, because if you don't, you could be getting all your bites on one color all day long. And if you were to change up your spread and put all that color out, you know, you could get multiple bites. So it's always good to pay attention to that.
So notice the patterns in the spread, notice the patterns in the colors, and then respond accordingly. All right, so that was number three. Tip number four, Professor, when we're trolling out there, what else do we need to consider?
Well, you really need to keep an eye out. It's offshore fishing. A lot of it is not only with your electronics, but visually. You see visual signs like slicks, birds. You'll see fish bust the water, break the water, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of visual things that can lead you to catching fish. A change, you know, a little rip, anything, a piece of debris floating.
Well, just last week, Trent, your son, was paying attention to the spread. He saw a mahi run through the spread.
Yeah.
It didn't bite, but as soon as he saw that, he free spooled it, and he ended up getting the mahi. That's an example of paying attention to everything that's around you.
Yeah, because a lot can happen back there you never ever see if you're not sitting there watching it. You know what I mean? You really have to study that spread.
What about boats? Like, I know, you know, sometimes we're in a heap of boats, and right now we've got a decent amount of boats around us. We are also noticing what they're doing. What do you pay attention to there? Like in terms of quick turns and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ocean out here, and we all kind of work together. But yeah, if you see another boat, you know, they're going in a straight line, trolling around, and all of a sudden they make a hard turn and double back. 9 times out of 10, they got a mark.
Right.
You know what I mean? So they're circling back on it. And a lot of times what they'll do, you know, just like I mentioned earlier, is when they get a mark, they'll circle on it, they'll get turned really hard so the baits will fall. And a lot of times you get a bite in a turn when you wouldn't normally get a bite, you know, going straight. It's kind of crazy. But you just notice patterns. You really need to pay attention to the patterns. That's one good tip here for this offshore fishing.
Yeah, so much. It seems like offshore fishing in many ways is just awareness of your surroundings and constantly being on watch. Head on the swivel, as they say.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
All right, number 4 is pay attention, y'all. And finally, tip number 5, Professor.
Trolling etiquette.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
And maybe not a technique, but it kind of is, because if you lose relations with those around you, you ain't gonna get no intel later on, right?
No. And you got to be conscientious of how far back another boat's lines are. If they hook up, they don't mind you coming in, you know, and trying to get some of their fish that are around the school. But you just have to be careful. Just give them a courtesy call on the radio, you know, and how far back are your longs? Do you have anything way back? Or
the fish too can dictate the distance, right?
Yes, they can.
In other words, like marlin, I guess we'd have to stay further back than if it was necessarily like a tuna that was down deep.
Yeah, so most of the time the marlins, you'll see them jumping behind the boat. You know what I mean? So you just want to stay clear of them, and that's really not a situation where you would go over there and try to get some of their cheerleaders. And that's what a fish, when you hook a fish, a lot of times the school stays with the fish that are hooked, and the fish that aren't hooked we call cheerleaders.
Okay.
So it's almost like they're cheering that one on, you know what I mean? But yeah, in marlin fishing, that's a whole different scenario. You don't want to go anywhere near them. 9 times out of 10, those marlin are either traveling in pairs or singles. You know, it's not like a whole school of fish like we're tuna fishing. You know what I mean? So it's going over there. If they've got a marlin on, it ain't gonna do you any good.
Yeah. All right, folks. So that's number 5, trolling etiquette. And you know, one thing you say to me all the time, Professor, is you're still learning, always learning. And I know since we've been down here full time, you've picked up on a lot of things even since that time. So it never stops, right?
You've got to be open-minded to everything, and never hesitate to learn new things, because you can look back 5 years ago on fishing techniques and things have changed so much, you know. And so you just always got to keep an open mind, keep your head on a swivel, and think about the others around you.
And one bonus tip, Professor, tip number 6, and this is an important one though, because everybody's always talking about it, which is
water temperature.
Water temperature. What is the deal with the water temperature?
Yeah, I mean, this year alone we've caught yellowfins in anywhere from 60-degree water to, you know, 80, almost 80-degree water.
Wow.
And so it's a wide range of water temperature, but you want to kind of look for the change. You want to be near the water temperature change, and that's kind of where the Gulf Stream is meeting the cooler water, ocean water there. And but you always need to look for that, the change. You just be conscientious. Once again, when you get a bite, take note of the water temperature. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And just keep a mental record of that.
I know I listen on the radio, the captains all the time are saying, you know, how warm is it down there, and what was the temperature of the bite, you know, where you got the bite at, and so that seems to really, really matter.
Just trying to figure out patterns, you know.
Once again, it comes back to the patterns. All right, friends, so those are 6 tips that should help you with your offshore trolling, and of course, you can add your tips, techniques in the comment section below, and we hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you like and subscribe, and join us on a charter. Until the next time, stay salty.